Thank you, Dr. Prasanna, once again for helping in conducting this short-term course on gender development. And there has always been some kind of dropout, and it happens today also. But anyway, we are there to always fill the gap. And so, as I already pointed out, I'll be talking on gender mainstreaming strategies, what kind of measures are to be taken, and I'll be talking in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals. Actually, I may be using the slide as it is prepared, otherwise it will be available for you. Maybe I would go even little deviating from the PPT. So it is there only for a suggestive purpose, and you can always pay attention here, whatever we will be interacting. So gender mainstreaming, the very concept itself, some of you are there without women's studies background, and you had listened to 3 presentations. Of course, the 2 presentations on the first 2 days were very much on focusing on gender issues, particularly on the context of COVID and how the work, how to rethink work that Dr. Geeta was focusing on. And so gender is something which is a social construction in the society, which is given by the society. It can be changed also. So gender is what a person to do, be it a boy or a girl or a man or a woman, whether she should behave like this or like that, and whether she can do that or he can do it or not. So something like that. So gender is something given by the society, defined by the social institutions, the dominant force, the people who were in the public life. And definitely you are aware that who are the dominant force in the society. The dominant order accordingly came from that dominant force. So people who possessed power. So where does this power come from? So this power is through the ownership of resources, control over resources, etc. So this is one aspect. So right from the beginning, the capitalist, the feudalistic, and the imperialist ideologies are ruling the economy and society, where whatever policies are being devised and implemented, they were all decided by the people who were in power. And the power also tried to be, it was not decentralized. It was about, it was not always centralized. And even any attempts to decentralize power also hasn't yielded results as we expected. And the second aspect is who were the people behind policy making. The people who were in public life. Since long, it is the women, it is the men who were in public life. Now women started coming and participating in education, in employment, in decision-making positions, in politics, and in also managerial positions, etc. But that was not the case. Even in Tamil, we have the proverb called Adupudum Pengalukku Padipedharku. So women are going to be in the kitchen. What is the need for their education? That is what it was. So that is a kind of the perception about women's education. And in religious text also, it was told that women, instead of going to school, she can serve the men in the family. So they have to choose whether to go to school or to serve the men in the family. That is what the religious text also intimated us. And therefore, women hardly had any chance to interact in the public life and public space. And therefore, whatever we now, whether it is the positive or negative or fortunate or unfortunate, whatever the facilities we have, etc., are happen to be men-centric. And of course, you said, as I already pointed out, it is sometime the people-centric, people in the sense, the dominant order-centric also. So with that background only, we are talking about gender mainstreaming. So gender mainstreaming tries to take into account the kind of needs, the situations, the circumstances, and the interests of men, women, and other gender, and accordingly provide or devise policies to incorporate the needs of every individuals in the society. So there is a need for engendering, like in the beginning, right from the beginning, the kind of facilities available, the kind of opportunities extended to men and women, etc., were not equal, and there is a connection between the kind of opportunities available to men and women and the power relationship. So the unequal power relationship provides the society that is very much attributed to the unequal opportunities in the society. So, and the other one I told about gender, how it is constructed. So there is a construction that women are supposed to take care of the family, the care economy, and the social reproduction. Whereas the women should go, I mean, men should go out and earn for the family, and whatever the kind of issue that the men face, they are supposed to be the breadwinner of the family, provider of the family. If they are not, then they will also be ridiculed, they will be teased, and they will not be respected by the society. Even the family, the parents would respect if the men do not go for work. And therefore, this is the construction, and this is further extended to space division also. So in the big, and like you have divided the work, the role, gender role, that men are supposed to be working outside, and working in the sense the paid work. You have work both at home and outside, and whatever work you do there in the private space, the home, the family, are happen to be unpaid, and therefore you don't even recognize that as work. As it was pointed out there by Geeta the other day, the census till 1981 census, the work performed by women were not at all counted as work, because census defines work as productive work, which includes only the paid work. So women do all the work which is not paid, and therefore it is actually quote unquote unpaid work, so unproductive work. So that is the kind of a perception on women's work, and so opportunities are not extended equally because of this division of work on the one hand, that is a role, and that is further extended to the space, the private versus public space. So in the private space, public space, mostly the men are operating, and they have to go out, they have to go and earn for the family, and they have to also interact with the public people, develop contacts, and also engage themselves in other development activities, which in a way was believed to be contributing to the overall development of the economy or society. But unfortunately, there was a complete neglect of their gender, another gender, which is 50%, constituting almost 50%, and that is the women. So when women's needs and facilities are not included, then it is very difficult to claim that there is equal opportunity, gender equality. And now coming to the Sustainable Development Goals, you have the fifth goal talking about this, and of course you had this Millennium Development Goals also, and there you at the third goal talking about gender equality. So this actually this gender mainstreaming concept as such to accommodate the needs and interest and the facilities required for the women and men and the other gender in the policies started right from 85 in the Nairobi World Conference on Women, and it was further established as a gender policy, international gender equality policy, through the Beijing Platform for Action. And in 1995, fourth United Nations World Conference on Women in Beijing onwards, it was taken as the policy. So gender mainstreaming is nothing but a public policy which talks about the mainstreaming of the needs in the policy, that is right from the design to the implementation and evaluation. So next slide. There are three important questions to be raised. Why? What is gender mainstreaming? That was all I was talking about. Why and how? So what I was talking, because there is unequal access to and control over power, resources, human rights, and institutions, including the justice system. You all agree with this, and this emanates from the historical unequal placing of women into different gender roles, different societal expectations, different space being provided, etc. So, and also gender situations, the situations which women and men, the circumstances from which men and women are being socialized also differ according to the country, the age, the ethnic, the social origin, and other factors. So it is not that gender differences are homogeneous. It is not that all women face the same issues, whether they are in the US or UK or in India, or the men also face the same kind of gender issues, whether they are placed in the Western or in this part of the globe. So women and men are not homogeneous. They are different. They differ across the as per the placement wherever they are. So we need to take into account these gender differences right from the designing to implementing. So this is what I mean. What? Why? Let us next slide. Move on to the why. So there are a number of studies, research studies, which have been conducted to understand the cost of gender inequality. So you all agree that when 50% of the population's the skills, the whatever the other capabilities are not taken into account and not utilized, and where is the question of contributing to the or optimizing the resources in the economic terms. So you have to utilize the resources to the fullest possible optimum. But unfortunately, in the name of construction in the society, gender division of labor and mostly unpaid work being imposed to be performed by women, the equal opportunity is not being extended. And this has a direct impact on the kind of development, the growth you have been experiencing in the country. So yesterday it was mentioned that going to the international finance and international trade, how women are constituting to just 10% of the women entrepreneurship, and as in the leadership positions also, it is now slowly growing, and sector wise there is a difference, but in general it is not actually happening. I'm talking about this leadership positions also. This is very, very crucial, leave alone women's education. Now it is happening more and more. Gender gap is really coming down in participation of education. And of course, it is a established fact that for the past 2.5 years or so, the employment participation of women has been on the decline. And though it was 30 and order, it was 32% or 37% sometime back in some 2 decades back, but slowly coming down, and now it's stagnated to 25%. And we have to find out whether there is any cause for this. And it is not that the women's participation in education has contributed to decline in participation of employment. There are several studies which has proved. And one important aspect that was established is that in the middle class, there is a tendency to make the women withdraw from the labor market just because the income is sufficient to manage. So that is the perspective from which the women labor or women's participation in employment is being viewed. Women's participation in employment is not just to bring income, and their skill, their education.
Madam, 1 minute. Sorry to interrupt. Now the PPT is available. PPT is available. Which slide do you want to display first now?
Yeah, I said why slide, third slide, I believe. I kept saying that next slide.
Danish, slide number 3, please.
It is starting with why.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So I keep saying next slide, but there is some order difference also. But
no, the anyway. PowerPoint is up only now, madam. Just now the PowerPoint is uploaded.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. So this is what the policies. Okay. So this is what. Is it okay now? Can I continue?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. The slides you can just taking my presentation, you can just see which slide. Anyway, this is a full screen, so we could not locate which number. So now I'm moving to how. There is a slide is captioned as how. So I was talking about why, now how. So I don't deny that there is no gender equality. There is no progress happening in terms of achieving towards and moving towards gender equality. But there is also a reversal trend that is happening, where I have pointed out the employment, how women's employment is on the decline. So in the context of increasing participation of women increasing participation of women in education, it is quite logical to think that more women will be joining the labor force. But unfortunately, the reverse is happening. So this is a paradox. And so what we expect is that on the one hand, there are affirmative actions by government, the individuals, the families, the civil society, etc., etc. But unfortunately, what is being expected is not happening. And always we point to the kind of, when we talk about social indicators, there are increase in the violence against women also. So on the one hand, there is a decline in participation of women in the development context. We claim that there is a development and we are moving towards a civilized society, but unfortunately, this is not happening. And so what is needed? How it has to be done? Gender mainstreaming is to be done. That is very important. So I am talking now on the how slide. So gender analysis is to be made. What is gender analysis? In very simple terms, that it is just taking stock of how resources are being distributed between men and women, of course, transgender. Whether the resources are equally being accessible, whether, for example, property right. Property right is highly unequal. The UN says that the women are performing two-thirds of the work, but hardly own 1% of asset. 1%, whereas 66% are 1%. This is a kind of a gender inequality that is prevailing in the society. And in the leadership position, I have already pointed out less than 10%. And thanks to now the political participation in parliament elections has reached to 14%. And though we have been asking for 33% reservation for the past 30 years and all, it is still pending. So what is needed is that we need to do gender analysis. Gender analysis is nothing but even in the family, you can just do a gender analysis. How the children you have boys and girls, and how boy is being treated, what is invested on him, and what kind of courses is being offered by the parents to opt for, and which college, which institution, which state, within the state or outside the state, etc., etc. And in the intra-household distribution of nutrition also, talking about, leave alone those participation in education, even the nutrition context, health context, there are differences. And I have witnessed myself in my stay in a village for a research for past, some 20 years back, that whenever a woman, girl is sick, they will try to go for home remedies, whereas for boys they will take to doctor. And the nutrition, they feel that some say egg is nutritious, so they will offer 2 eggs for a boy, whereas 1 egg for a girl, or 1.5 eggs for a boy and half an egg for a girl. So this is what the nutrition. It is not deliberately done, which is connected with the construction. It is said that women are supposed to be staying back, and therefore they need not have to be taking much. And men are going out, and therefore they have to. So they have to be healthy enough and strong enough to perform whatever work. And another example I can say, family planning, which we call permanent sterilization. So this is hardly, totally targeting the women, not the men. There are easiest method for men to go and undergo the sterilization, and they can resume to work immediately. But this is not happening. When you ask this question to people, they said, no, women, after all, staying back, and they can bear whatever the side effects, whereas men, they are going out, and therefore actually there won't be any side effect for men because it is done outward, whereas for women only it is complicated, and it will have future implications also on their health. So these are all because of the construction, the patriarchal notions prevailing in the society, and therefore the gender analysis also should start from that particular perspective, in a very gender equality perspective. You have to do in a gender justice perspective. So you do that in the family and extend to the workplace also. I can share some examples, like when you are there in the university system, be a student or a teacher or a staff, you have to analyze. We did a study on gender participation in decision-making committees by Bharatdasan University. So similarly in the gender perceptions of boys and girls also. So there is a division, like how many women are there in the decision-making bodies? How many committees are there? There are around 100 and odd committees. For a very small committees, very not much strategically important committees to a very strategically important committees. So how many women are there participating or being nominated there in the committee to be and there in the committee, and women are not. And many a time you can see, even in the decision making committees like syndicate, you will have only the men. Of course, one is elected, one is coming, like faculty members will be on their seniority basis, and the other are nominated, and also. So wherever there is scope, for example, nomination from the governor office comes. So there you can say, if there are three, at least one should be there as women. So this is what I mean, the gender analysis. So when women are there, I mean the gender sensitive women. Gender sensitive women are there in the committees. Definitely, there will be a change in approach in terms of attending the needs of the women. So what is actually needed? It is not that gender mainstreaming is a big issue, but what is lacking is the political will. So it is against the religious establishment, it is against the patriarchal, imperialistic, capitalistic and feudalistic culture that is being deep-rooted for thousands of years together, and also commitment. I mean, that is why people are finding it difficult to implement. First thinking of it is itself is difficult, thanks to women's organizations, gender sensitive people who have really helped in establishing it. But there is still a political will, that is a lack of political will to implement it. And second is that, okay, and the leadership is there in an institution, they have to be, what I should say, they have to have the commitment and awareness. Commitment and awareness. And third is the responsibility of all actors. So it is not that the state or the government alone will be responsible for it, as it was discussed in the earlier context. Every individual has a responsibility to it. So there are three important things: that the political will is needed, and everyone should have the commitment and the responsibility. Next slide about the key characteristics of gender mainstreaming. And I have already mentioned that it has to promote gender equality, and also it has to complement the roles of or how women and men are on transgender or interdependent and complement each other. It is not that men should alone do this, or women should do this role. For instance, let me substantiate this. The kind of the division of work in a particular factory or the office, any training, I mean, any woman or a man, if training is given and also equal encouragement opportunity is extended, definitely they will be doing. Let's take for an example. For example, if I have myself witnessed in a garment factory, the machines are being operated only by men. The women are doing all the folding, the cutting, the wastages, packing, etc. in a textile company. So it is not that the women are not capable of. Women, if the training is given there to operate in the machine, they would have been performing. But somewhat it has gone to the notions of the corporate that this cannot be done by women. And also it is associated with other aspect, that they meet with an accident, then they will lose their organs, and it is difficult for them to get married off. So this is what it is connected. So it is to be understood that any opportunity, if it is extended to both men and women, of course, given the limitation, if I am not interested to do that, let me be excluded. But I am interested, if I am not trained on that, and no opportunity was given to me, and therefore I am not able to. So that kind of issues are to be extended. So with this introduction about the concept of gender mainstreaming and how it has to be done, why it is needed, and what strategies to be followed, now I move to the Sustainable Development Goals. So it is titled as UN SDGs 2030 Agenda. So Sustainable Development Goals, of course, people who are in the development field must be aware of it. We have failed to achieve the Millennium Development Goals by 2015, and therefore UN and the member countries have immediately gone for this Sustainable Development Goals, and they have identified 17 Sustainable Development Goals with 169 targets, and each sustainable goals have some suggestive targets. Of course, there are other targets which can be at the micro level added, and need not be confining only to those targets which have been established, enlisted there. And it is the goal 5, SDG 5 talks about achieving gender equality and women's empowerment. And it says that it is an integral part. It is not me saying this. I mean, the UN and other organizations, development organizations, they underlined that the gender cuts across all the 17 goals. So this is very significant. So here comes the gender mainstreaming. So unless gender has been recognized, inclusive strategies are being implemented and added, incorporated into the plan of actions, it is difficult to realize this SDG by 2030. Actually, as I already pointed out, the Millennium Development Goals could not be achieved by 2015 because of the lack of filling the gender gap. And that is also going to be reflecting in when it is not happening there in the with the SDGs. So I have listed can you just shift to the slide which lists about 17 SDGs, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals to transform our world. So this is to transform world. So if you want to transform the world, you need to have this gender integrated into all the 17 goals. Why I am insisting on this? I think Ganesh can go to this slide. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So I have listed it, you can just see that no poverty, zero hunger. No poverty is the first SDG, followed by zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable clean energy. So it goes like this. So what I am trying to say here is this, as UN pointed, it's not me. It is an integral, gender is an integral part of all the 17 SDGs. So take for example, poverty. So it says that no poverty. So we should not, we have to, into 2030, we have to reach a situation where nobody will be suffering from poverty. So this is, so how you will, and you know, poverty has women's space. Again, it is UN says, not me. And whenever there is a livelihood issue or poverty issue in the family, in the household, they will definitely be affecting the women more than the men. Let me substantiate. So, for example, only little rice is there. So who will, what will the women, whether it is a mother or the sister or the aunt, whoever it may be, யார் அதை பகிர்ந்துக்கிறது நீங்க பார்த்திருப்பீங்க. So it will certainly be the mother will serve to the members of the family, the children, the elders, and of course the male members. And she will starve if it is nothing is left over. Then she will starve and proceed. So this is what I mean. The simple example I am giving. So poverty has its women's face, and if you extend this to work, if livelihood opportunities are, there is lack of livelihood opportunities, it is the women who are fired first. Even yesterday it was pointed out there by Dr. Prasanna in the International Finance presentation that as employees there are more women employed in the international trade institutions, but unfortunately whenever there is any deployment, it is the women who are fired out, and it is not only there and everywhere. So any company or even in agriculture. So it is because you have to connect now to the gender division of labor. It is established already that men are supposed to be the breadwinner and the women are the what I should say, the people secondary. It was even established again that women's income or women's role is treated as secondary and supplementary. The income, the woman's income would be the most primary income to the family, but still they don't claim that their family, their income is primary. And therefore, when you want to eliminate poverty by 2030, you have to necessarily focus on women's employment, women's participation in decision making, and integrate gender into poverty alleviation programs, where you have to take into consideration the kind of issues, the necessities to be incorporated. That is second. I'll just quickly go through because there will be time shortage. The zero hunger. So that means it is connected with poverty. See, the hunger households are vulnerable, more vulnerable than the poverty households. At least poverty means you have something to do, but hunger means you have nothing. So by 2030, the second goal is to achieve zero hunger. So it is followed by the no poverty goal only. So if there is no poverty, then definitely hunger will be absent, definitely, because hunger is head of poverty. And you address hunger first and then only move to poverty. And therefore, so how many, if you, even now, if you go and take stock of the hunger households and the persons who suffer with hunger, you definitely realize that more women will be there with zero, I mean, with hunger.